My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. Waiting for a long time.
We know Donald Trump loves tariffs. He even called them the most beautiful word in the dictionary.
Think of European Union, very friendly. They rip us off. It's so sad to see.
His slapping of them on imports to the US 4 months ago, though, didn't leave the stock markets looking too pretty. Financial panic took hold, and so the tariffs were put on hold. Trump playing the percentages, perhaps, allowing more time to strike trade deals with countries. That deadline has now passed. So, flanked by an NFL player and a wrestler, Trump announced he's flipping global trade on its head once again, with new tariff rates for more than 90 countries, including Canada, just days after they announced plans to recognise a Palestinian state, something Trump says will make a potential agreement between the neighbours very hard.
Well, they have to pay a fair rate. That's all. It's very simple. They have been charging very, very high tariffs to our farmers, some over 200%. And they've been treating our farmers very badly. They've been treating our country very badly for years.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said he's disappointed by Trump's action, writing on social media,
"The Canadian government is laser focused on what we can control, building Canada strong. Canadians will be our own best customer, creating more well-paying careers at home as we strengthen and diversify our trading partnerships throughout the world."
Canada has seen its rates jump by 10%, up from 25% to 35%, although most Canadian goods are exempt under a previous agreement. Some of the world's poorest and most war-torn countries face extremely high tariffs, including Syria at 41%. Laos and Myanmar have been hit by rates of 40%. Thailand secured a last-minute deal that's much lower than the 36% level announced on April's Liberation Day. Now they'll face 19% instead. While in Europe, Switzerland has been hit with a 39% levy, more than double the rate of its EU neighbours.
Yeah, thank you. We have a deal. We have a trade deal between the two largest economies in the world.
A 15% ceiling on most EU exports to the US was agreed by the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen at Trump's golf course in Scotland last weekend.
President Trump, we love you!
He's fallen well below par on his promise of signing 90 deals in 90 days. The reality, only around a dozen have been reached.
And you've done a fantastic job.
With the UK the first to sign a deal with the US during Trump's second term. That 10% agreement was made in May. Higher tariffs for Mexico have been paused for another 90 days, while China isn't included in today's announcement.
Thank you.
These new tariffs don't take effect immediately. They go live on the 7th of August. A week is a long time, especially in Trumpland. We're joined now by Ben May, who is a global economist at Oxford Economics. Ben, thanks very much for joining us. Can you tell us what sort of reaction are we seeing already from this announcement?
Well, there has been a little bit of a fallback in equity markets across the world in response to these tariffs. That's perhaps no surprise, but it's worth noting, that's a fall after a sustained rise from those big falls seen since April. So, in the grand scheme of things, equity markets are still riding quite high compared to where they were back in April.
So how would you summarise then the difference now compared to the turmoil, frankly, that we saw in April?
Well, I think probably one of the elements is that there was perhaps a lot more of a shock element to that announcement at that time, both in terms of the breadth of those tariff increases and also the scale for many of those economies. Obviously, what's been going on more recently has been sort of widely flagged. There's been perhaps a bit of speculation that some of these deals might be watered down or delayed, and obviously some deals have been struck that have allowed those tariffs to come back. So I think it's much less of a shock.
Was there anything in there in terms of the rates that particularly surprised you?
Well, I think by and large these were broadly flagged. So in that sense, I'm not sure there are any massive surprises in terms of what's announced today. Certainly nothing that's sort of a game changer from a broader global perspective.
They obviously haven't gone live yet. We've got until the 7th of August, and you know a lot can happen, can't it, in a week, particularly the way Trump's been going. Do you think that's going to have an effect on how other countries interact with the US now?
It's possible. I mean, clearly, what we now know is there's a sort of template via which you can probably reach a broad agreement with the US. We've seen quite a few economies do that, so it's plausible that this is the sort of catalyst for a few more economies to agree those deals. And of course, even if deals aren't hatched by August the 7th and tariffs go up, there's also clearly that possibility that over the coming weeks or even months, some sort of deal that can be hatched with the US that brings that headline tariff rate down.
Do you think other countries are following the UK's lead in striking a deal with the US?
Well, I think what we're sort of starting to see is a sort of slightly more pragmatic approach. We've seen that with a few things in the sense that economies are perhaps focusing less on the sort of retaliation aspect and sort of being perhaps a bit more pragmatic and going let's reach a deal. Obviously the UK did that, but you know the EU have done that, you know, and various other economies now. So I think that's probably seen very much as the approach to take for now at least.
Trump's tariff tactics seem to have got less aggressive. Has his stance softened?
Really, what we've seen in a matter of weeks and months is, you know, tariff rates going up to the kind of levels that we've not seen since, you know, something like the 1930s. So I wouldn't necessarily want to underplay the shift that we've seen, even if perhaps the average effective tariff rate that people thought was possible back immediately after Liberation Day hasn't quite been reached. I'm not sure that's necessarily something to get too celebratory around. It's still very high.
And what sort of effect is all of this likely to have on inflation then?
Well, in the US, it is likely to generate higher inflationary pressures. Clearly, there may be an element where some firms, either from abroad or within the US, absorb some of those tariff costs, but some is likely to be passed on. And there's already starting to be a little bit of evidence that's coming through. That's likely to continue over the coming months. And obviously, as tariff rates go up on various economies and products, that will only intensify.
Okay, Ben May, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. No problem at all.